Video games. There are so many video games, and just when you thought there couldn't be any more of them, you remember there's also handheld games. As great as our traditional home consoles are, they're still limited in certain ways, and in ways that handheld gaming can come to the rescue. That said, with the popularity of the Switch, fusing the two together, the divide between them is becoming less and less. Mostly gone are the days of games being made just for handhelds. And as much as there are benefits to this, with companies being able to consolidate their development resources, it does mean that the unique feel of handheld-only games will become a thing of the past. But lucky for us, we're retro gamers. Hanging on to things from the past is what we do. Games, consoles, poor life decisions. Actually, that one's not required, but well, we'll just toss it in as a bonus. Plus, we all know the only truly poor life decision is to stop playing video games, am I right? Now, the awkward thing is that throughout the life of handheld games, being a handheld-only game was sometimes used as an insult, with the implication being that it was made with a smaller budget or by a company's secondary development team, with the silver lining being that you sometimes got more experimental, interesting ideas, or games that harken back to the games of older times, kind of like how indie games do. In fact, it could be argued that the spirit of handheld exclusive games lives on through indie games as well as lower budget games that do still get made. Regardless, there are people who view the handheld exclusive games of old to be lesser, and have even made the decision to ignore handheld gaming entirely. This divide has even caused some handhelds to develop an inferiority complex. I can't tell you the number of times I go to play my Super Nintendo and find this when I know I'd left Contra 3 in there last I played. Come to think of it, I don't know where my copy of Contra 3 is. But whatever your feelings on handheld games might be, there are no doubt a lot of handheld games loved by passionate gamers alike. So, as we enter a time when handheld-only games might be a thing of the past, I thought I'd share 5 games for our beloved handhelds that I feel will always be enjoyable as we head into the future. The first game is Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, a game from the past with a story that takes place in the future, and known by many as the best game that's like Symphony of the Night, but not Symphony of the Night. Like Plantains, the best nanner that isn't a nanner, but actually is still a type of nanner. As somebody who prefers the more classic Castlevania games as opposed to the more exploration-based games like these ones, I'd consider myself a little picky, but I definitely love this one. The issue I typically have with games that emphasize exploration is that there is too much wandering around in between the points of interest. You know, the good stuff. But I'm happy to say that Aria of Sorrow is packed full of interesting enemies, cool bosses, and new areas to discover. Tying it all together is the abundance, and I mean abundance, of abilities you have access to. Just look at them all. It's really fun to play around with the different possibilities and see what new ones you can find as you reach different parts of the game and face new enemies. Although, admittedly, you may end up just sticking to the ones that work best. There's a lot of different fruits to try out too. Besides that, the story is about what you'd come to expect, but this time in the future because, well, the series likes to bounce around to different times, and they were probably due. It's not like the game takes place in outer space or something, though. It still has a very typical Castlevania-type setting. And if you're wondering, in this footage here, I'm playing as Julius, an alternate character once you beat the game. He's got a whip and a couple other unique abilities, but lacks a lot of the abilities you get with Soma, so you might have a preference for who you'd like to play as. Okay, Next game on my list would be Advance Wars, and while it could be the first one, I'm choosing the second one. This series has roots on home consoles with what was called Famicom Wars in Japan, but in the United States, Advance Wars is very much a series that people associate with handhelds. It's always stood out to me as a perfect handheld game because of the way you can suspend a battle at any point, making it really easy to play in bits when you're busy on the go, you know? Or not. Fun fact for ya, I was ready to play some Super Mario Wonder on launch day, but instead felt the urge to play this, so I took a little cheat day for myself, aka every day, because you should play what you want. Super Mario Wonder could wait and was just as fun to play the month after. Advance Wars has that sort of addictive quality to it. It's easy to get into. Just take over buildings, accumulate money to purchase new units, and utilize the units to conquer the opposition, with each battle bringing a new scenario and a new game plan for you to come up with. The game hooks you. Really, it is addicting, but not addicting in a please help me, I feel gross type of way. Addicting in more of a yeah, I'm thinking about playing this even at times during the day when I'm not. Hey, you could actually just be playing now. It's a handheld game. Next game is A Link Between Worlds. You know, sometimes people will say that Ocarina of Time is like a 3D version of A Link to the Past, but this game is even more so like a 3D version of A Link to the Past. And on top of that, it's in 3D, stereoscopic 3D that is, in addition to using 3D models instead of 2D sprites. Now, I wouldn't say that the 3D necessarily makes the game great compared to the 2D sprite work in A Link to the Past. What makes the game great is that it's a top-down style Zelda game that follows in the footsteps of A Link to the Past, which are good footsteps to follow. That's really all you need to sell most people on giving this game a go, if that is indeed a selling point. But if you're looking for another selling point, I think the stereoscopic 3D that the game utilizes is a big plus. In fact, as somebody who is generally not a fan of 3D, I think the 3D on the 3DS is really good, if you have the questionably named new 3DS that works a lot better than the original. And yeah, I know it's annoying to be recommending additional hardware if you don't already have it, but the newer model works a lot better due to the way it tracks your eyeballs. It's really impressive how well it works, and believe me, I know all about things tracking my eyeballs. You can't see the 3D effect on camera, of course. I don't even have it turned on. It needs eyeballs. Hey, maybe that would have been a better name for it. But even if you don't have the new 3DS or prefer to keep 3D turned off, most importantly, this is still a great Zelda game, hitting a lot of the same beats that make A Link to the Past great, with some added mechanics, most notably the ability to become a painting and move along walls and through cracks. If I'm being honest, I don't remember exactly what the story was, but I do remember that I enjoyed it. Hey, this game came out over a decade ago. Feels like it was just yesterday. And yep, with a comment like that, I'm definitely on the hot route to geezerhood. All right. Next game on the list is Donkey Kong 94, also known as Donkey Kong, the one on Game Boy, or Donkey Kong. That game is amazing. I've always loved the original Donkey Kong arcade game that inspired it, and this game feels like a more fleshed out version of it, with the main thing being that there are a ton more stages. The original arcade game just had 4 different screens, which makes sense, seeing as it was designed around making runs for high scores, but this game plays different as it's more about making your way through all the different stages. It has 9 different worlds, each with a good amount of unique levels to play through. I've even heard some people say that this game might be too long, not something you hear said often about an original Game Boy game. Add it to the list. But because none of the game feels like filler, I'd say that its long length is acceptable. In fact, it's great. Alright, and for the final game on my list, we have Cat Trap. I love bananas, but I love this game just as much. Yeah, we're getting real serious here. Now, I've talked about this game in detail before, but considering almost nobody else ever talks about it, I'd say I'm in the clear to talk about it as much as I want. I mean, technically, this is my channel. I can do what I want. And see, I just did that and got away with it. What makes Cat Trap so satisfying to play is the way it makes you use your brain. To which you might be thinking, whoa, I don't always like to use that while playing games. I hear ya, and there's games for those occasions as well, but this game belongs in a category I like to call joyful brain use. Each time you pass a stage, you feel smart. And everyone likes to feel smart sometimes. In each stage, you're trying to reach all the enemies. Reaching them automatically triggers a kick your butt off the screen animation, but actually reaching them is where the puzzle element comes into play. There's a handful of basic mechanics you have to work with, including navigating ladders, removing sand, I think it's sand, and pushing blocks. The rest is up to you and your brain, so make sure you and your brain are getting along when you play this. The game could be described as a puzzle platformer, and oddly shares a bit of resemblance to the highly acclaimed game Braid, with the main similarity being that you can rewind time at any point as you're trying to solve the stages. Who here remembers Braid? But unlike Braid, this game doesn't make me want to smash my controller into the wall. Good thing too, because smashing a Game Boy is kind of sad. The thing is an icon. Another nice feature of Cat Trap is that you can play the stages in any order you want. All 99 of them before unlocking the final stage. So if you want to start with stage 99, you can. I wouldn't recommend it because you'll get your butt whooped, but a high chance of getting your butt whooped doesn't stop people from doing a lot of things. For example, life. The game also utilizes a very simple, thank goodness, password system to keep track of which stages you've completed. Can't recommend this game enough. I'm crazy for it. But there we have it. My choices for 5 handheld games that I believe will always be fun, which are by no means the only 5. And you know, what's nice about handheld games is that not only can you take them with you on the go, but what I feel like a lot of people realized with the Switch is that it's nice even just for moving around within your home, to play wherever you want. Because why play in your go-to comfortable couch when you can not? Or, you know, in a different comfortable spot. All that said, I would of course be curious which games you would choose as your favorite handheld games that you can see yourself playing for years into the future. I always like to see which games will get recommended by multiple people. There's always games that are. You think alike and think well is what I'd chalk it up to. So with that, leave your choices and any other thoughts you may have down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah. And he's talking about video games. He's